I had a question in regards to boundaries within the step family dynamics. I
Alrighty.
would love to see you do a book on that. Actually, there's so many different pieces to that. We have a issue with teenage kids that come from the other household. It's 50-50 shared, and they bring the disrespect and the hateful
Okay,
ugliness with them.
let me make sure I know what we're talking about here. Okay, so you are married to a man who has teenagers from a previous marriage?
Correct.
Okay, and y'all share 50-50 with the other house.
Correct.
Okay, and is the other house now a two-parent household?
Yes, she
Okay,
is remarried. Yes.
okay. And how long have you guys been together?
7 years.
7 years. Okay, great. So
Yeah.
you've got a long-standing relationship with the stepkids now.
Yes, I do. I do. And
Do you guys do well? You and the stepkids?
um, that kind of depends. That depends on where their mother is where their mom is emotionally at any particular time.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
it's me and the girls, we have a lot of great times. We do things together. We enjoy being together. Um, but they carry so much of the unhealthiness from over there. And depending on whether mom's raging over whatever it is of the day, they bring
Okay.
that with them. And the thing we haven't been able to we've read lots of stuff, love your stuff, it's been life saving. But one of the things that we really just haven't been able to fix or kind of find a way around is when they make the transition over. If mom is raging, and what we found is, if things are chaotic in the other household, they kind of take that out on this household.
Yeah.
And one of them is a disrespect issue. I have a real problem with that, and particularly disrespectful to me. And my husband sometimes doesn't even see it. He's getting better, but because that's just always that's what he knows. That's what he's always seen from them and
Yeah.
from her. But it's
Yeah.
not healthy.
Okay.
And
Give me an
so
example of what does disrespect look like? What would be an example of
we had an issue with the oldest daughter. So I pulled back because that's what I do when I get hurt, and
But
healthy or unhealthy.
what
What I
is
do.
an issue? What did she do?
Um, she was just being really hateful. She was ignoring me. She was back talking me. She's not doing what I've asked. We had just had
Okay.
kind of a round of things of just in general. And so I had pulled back. My husband, she had asked him and said, is she upset with me? And he said, well, I believe she hasn't appreciated how you've been treating her, so she's kind of pulled back some. And
Not a bad
so he
answer.
asked me to speak with her. Right. So he asked me to speak with her. So I said I'm a nurse, had worked 3 or 4 shifts, so I was not in my best place at the time. I was exhausted. But I did go to her with him present and said, I understand you've asked your dad about me being upset, and I wanted to talk to you about that. And I said, I have been upset. I was hurt. I haven't liked the way you've been treating me. And immediately she laughs at me and rolls her eyes and throws herself back on the couch and is laughing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And he did not say, I can't believe you're responding in that way. Instead, he says, I didn't see your eyes roll. I didn't see her roll her eyes at you because I was watching you at the time. And I'm like, what?
Okay.
So we have a lot of these kinds of things where he just doesn't,
Okay.
he doesn't see it, which becomes
So
an issue with us. And
what's the question? Is it about him or about how to deal with her?
how to deal with them, and what is from boundaries. I've had a couple of things where they came in and they were talking, they were very hateful, and I just turned around and said, look, girls, very calmly, I understand you don't value me and I understand where that comes from. I said, but regardless, if you or your mom thinks I'm valuable, God created me valuable, and you're not going to talk to me that way anymore. And they just kind of looked at me dumbfounded, and it got better for a little while. But I need some of those little things to be able to say, this
I
is
like
not
it when
okay.
it's sort of like, I'm sorry, I'm in the middle. And please don't send me letters about I'm comparing this is not meant to compare people to dogs, but I'm in the midst of puppy training right now. So I got a new Doberman, and I love dog training. But one of the things about when they're just crazy, and in some area they're just out of control, and
Hmm.
you finally correct them. Sometimes they'll look at you like, what was that? What
Yeah.
there's order in the universe. I didn't know. Where did that come from? And I love it. I love it when you say they looked at me dumbfounded.
Yeah.
They were dumbfounded
They
because
didn't
I
know what
asked
to.
for respectful behavior.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so we
So
get a lot of that. And when we correct the youngest one, particularly, it's always the blame game. As soon as we say, now you were caught lying, and so then all of a sudden it's about, well, you raised your voice. Excuse me, we were talking about, and so then we get
okay.
off on a tangent.
Mhm.
So I just
All right. So
wonder what would be a good boundary in just saying, look, if you're not going to listen to me, you're not going to respect me or speak to me,
okay.
respect that I'm
Let
a
me.
woman in this house. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally,
Have some
totally.
authority. Okay.
Well, that's true, certainly. But it's also bigger than that. If you were a guest third cousin in the house, you would still want these girls to act
Yes.
respectfully. Okay.
Correct.
The the role partially the role of parents commanding respect with children has very little to do with the parents long term, because the parents are going to be gone in a few years. When parents are commanding respect, what that has to do with is that at that moment they do have the leverage and the authority to teach a child how to respect another human, and then they internalize that value and they take it out. They take it outside.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. You've got some authority in the house, and all of that, but it's also good, and this is going to get into the answer as well. It's also good to contextualize this and remember this. This is one of the most important things that you can remember in parenting. It's not about us. Okay, I'm a parent also. It's not about us, and it's not about now. Okay, it's
Yeah.
not about
Yeah.
us. It's not about now. So when they're responding to us, what that's really about is it's about them and their behavior and how they're going to treat people in the future. They're getting their homework done. It's not about the homework. It's about doing their taxes and turning them in on time at age 40, or
Right.
getting the
That
report
I
into
say
the
that all
boss
the
on
time.
it. Yeah.
Play this
So
forward. This forward.
play it forward. There you go.
Yeah.
Where'd you
Play
read
play the behavior forward.
that?
Um.
Play it
Yeah.
forward.
Play it
Okay.
forward. No. What does this look like? When they're 20. What does this look like as a wife? What does this
Exactly.
behavior look like as a
Exactly.
mother? Right.
Exactly. So now, why do I say all that? Well, one thing is this. I think, and you guys have probably done this. I'm going to just put it on the list for other people as well. Is in this blended situation, by and large, you're not the parent. Your husband is, right, and you've been
Correct.
brought into that. And there's by definition, there's confusion for the kid. The kid's got quote two moms now, right? A mom and a
Right.
stepmom. And so, one of the things that is really important is that the parents are really clear in their own dyad as what do we want to look for in and try to establish with the kids in terms of how they treat me, the step, as a parent. Okay, depends on their ages and this that, and the other. But
Right.
we need to be clear about that. And so that's, you said you saw that break down. He said, well, I didn't see
Mm.
a roller, and he didn't enter in and that. And so I
Right.
think it'd be good for you guys to sit down, you and him, and say, okay, so what are we expecting here when they need permission for teenage things? Are they going to go do this or that, or what time they come home, or blah 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 blah? Where do the decision rights for that lie? Do they come to me, or either one of us or you. And I would just get some clarity around areas of authority. If they're
Okay.
going to go talk about how they deal with their other house and all of that, y'all might have decided, well, stepmom can give you some thoughts and opinions, but really that's kind of something you ought to talk to your dad about. Okay.
Right.
So just get clear. Then secondly, I would want that clarity to get transferred to the kids. So as a blended family, you sit down and you say, okay, you guys, I'm your dad, but you got a mom and a stepmom here. And so let's just talk about kind of how that works. And then you lay some ground rules and some expectations. And then the third thing I would do is I would say this, but what I'm about to talk about now, kids, has nothing to do with kids or adults or mommies and daddies and stepdaddies and mommies and daddies. This has to do with human behavior and respect and values. And so what we want to do in this household is let's talk about let's come up with a list of values that we think will make us have the best time together. Okay? What would some of those be? In your relationships with your friends, guys, weigh in on this. In your relationships with your friends, what do you like about your good close friends? Well, they listen to me. They don't call me names. When I ask them to do something, we'll talk about it and then they'll say yes or no clearly. If I hurt their feelings or they hurt my feelings, we talk about it. We go talk to somebody else. We're compassionate, whatever. Okay. Well, if that's how your best relationships work, let's write these down and then let's have some household values here. Probably wouldn't call them family values because that might make it confusing to the steps.
Right.
But here's some household values. All right. So that's how we're going to try to treat each other. Well, what does that look like? And tie some behaviors to that. Well, that would look like if you hurt my feelings, I don't scream at you and throw a skateboard through your door.
Right.
I come talk to you about it. So then come to the next step. And this is where the rubber meets the road. Say, okay, so if one of us fails to do that, then what are we going to do at that moment? Okay. And if you get a good agreement there at that moment, what we're going to do is we're going to point it out and say, okay, let me remind you of the family value. That didn't feel good right there. That didn't feel like the way we said we were going to do it. Try again. And see, now you're engaging them. And this is where parenting moves from policing to training, because training demands a focused attention in the moment and a reference back to a standard. Okay, here's what you did there. Remember, we talked about doing it this way. Here's what I want you to do. Now try it again.
Okay.
And that's how I would approach this, rather than just a different way of approaching it in the instance. Let's set a context so we know when we do have to intervene, we have some proper ground rules and expectations.
Okay. And all of that would go regardless of what's coming from the other household. Because we do know a lot of this is they've been told you don't have to listen, you don't have to mind her, you don't need to do anything she says.
Well, if you know
and so
that,
we come from that, but that doesn't matter.
If you do,
that's still what we require here.
That becomes part of the conversation. I'm glad you reminded me of that, because that becomes part of the conversation when you're talking about, okay, now these values, y'all have told me, or I've heard that, the other house, your mom says that these aren't important here. But here's how this works. Your mom and Joey, who she's married to now, they get to set the rules for their house. But over here, we're going to all set them together, and Dad and I or Mom and I are going to enforce them, right? And so you just make a distinction, say they can do what they want. But in this house, because this is the only house we're in charge of, this is how it's going to work. And then here will be the consequences. Okay. And also what I would do if I were you is, because teenagers don't have the most mature equipment in their head yet,
No. Yeah.
even on a good day. Um,
Right.
I, I like to think that my girls are superstars. They roll their eyes when I say that. Um, but I can promise you, I've seen eye rolling and teenage snittiness out of both of them as we're going through the years and the stages. And the main thing about parents is we can't get tethered to that behavior because they're going to go up and down. We got to stay steady and then respond appropriately. Okay, I remember not too long ago I was talking to one of mine about something, and she did exactly kind of unplugged and whatever. And in the moment, I said, I'm not going to call the name, but I said, sweetheart, what you just did is very, very disrespectful. I don't think you would like to be on the other end of somebody doing that to you when they're trying to talk to you. And I know I don't want to be on the other end. So you're going to get another chance to do that better. Okay. You just address it in the moment.
Okay. Yeah, that's what, and that's what we need in the moment.
Yeah, and one more thing is this. What I started to say, because they don't have they're just not equipped, and they've had an earthquake in their psyches.
Right.
A split is not good for a kid.
Right.
It's just not good.
Right.
So what we're also going to do is we're going to expect, because you have to get our expectations right. This doesn't mean allow, but we're going to expect them to get infected over there in the other house and kind of come into your house sneezing. They're getting a cold over there, right? So sometimes when they're making that transition or whatever, you got your radar up and you can kind of sense that. You might want to enter into that kind of empathically. So before you get into conflicts, just kind of say, so how you doing? What's going on? Did you have a good stay and all of that? Or you seem like you may not be having the happiest day today. Anything I can do? And so you kind of like head it off at the pass a little bit, and you become a little bit of a shock absorber because what's going to happen sometimes is they'll bring that and they'll do something snitty, and then we get into the battle.
Yeah.
So now we've got a battle on top of an unmetabolized emotional state in a kid from the other house. So now we're stacking it.
Yeah.
So if you can, if you can,
we try and show more grace
and heal it.
First day.
Go ahead.
I said we try and show more grace on that first day that they come to make that transition, because
That's
that first day does have to be more. Doesn't mean we excuse it, but then after day 2 or 3, and they've been here, it's kind of like, okay, enough. So we do understand that transition period is requires a little more, but then
let's add to the transition period also entering into it a little bit and trying to help them with it. Okay, I gotta run.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk to you longer.
Thank you.
It's a tough deal, but if I ever get a stepmom, I'm gonna call you. I want you to coach them. Okay, sounds like you're doing a good job.